So once again, good morning, everyone. I'm Kathleen Jackson, the Career Advisor in the College of Business, and I'd like to welcome you to the second Student Success Day for 2021. And I'd like to introduce you to my co-presenter right now, or I'll let her introduce herself.
Hi, everyone. Good morning. Welcome. My name is Lynn Finnegan, and I am the Experiential Education Coordinator in the College of Business, but everyone calls me the Internship Coordinator because I deal a lot with the internships, employers, credit for internships. So I'm your go-to person for that. So welcome, and thank you for being here.
And, the heart of this class is getting you ready, giving you the materials that you are going to need to successfully launch an internship or a job search. And the heart of that is the resume, the cover letter, the thank you letter, and the LinkedIn profile. And then, of course, how do you go about doing that search? So those are the key things that we're going to talk about this morning. I will walk you through sample resume and cover letters, tell you what needs to go in each of those sections. I'll try to stop in between and filter any questions that you might have. We'll do the thank you note, and then I will take you into the LinkedIn profile. The reason we spend so much time on the LinkedIn profile is that, in olden days, not really that far ago, what you would do is you would find a job posting and you would apply for it. And sometimes you would look in the newspaper, sometimes you would look at an online site, sometimes you'd look at a job database. The reality is that now a lot of employers are going right to LinkedIn and they're posting the positions there. So that means the profile that you have on LinkedIn, which is sort of like a professional Facebook page, that's what an employer is seeing about you right from the start. So it's really important that LinkedIn profile looks really good for you. And we're going to talk you through some of the tips that you need to think about as you go about putting your profile together. But the first thing when you start looking for a job, the first thing that an employer is going to say to you is, do you have a resume? Can you send it to me? So that's where I'm going to start right now. I'm going to share my screen with you. And I'm going to take you to the College of Business webpage, because this is where so many resources exist for you. And I want you to be able to figure out how to find out what you need. So when you click into the College of Business webpage, this is what you're going to see. It's a little bit, there's a few clicks that you have to go through in order to get where you need to be. It's not just going to say resumes. So from the College of Business ribbon, you click on Student Support. From Student Support, you click on Career Services. And from Career Services, there's a whole list of things that you can choose from. What we're going to start talking about, or where we're going to start today, is with resumes. So what I've done is I created a sample resume for each major. Now, know that what I put in the resume is sort of like the ultimate that you could do in any particular major. I tried to find different clubs and organizations, certain internships, that a lot of things that people have. I put them in there deliberately so that they're things that you could shoot for. We know that all of your resumes aren't going to look like this, but there are certain things that all good resumes have in common, and those are the things that I'm going to talk through with you this morning. So I guess just starting at the top, I'll just pick accounting as a resume to start looking at. So when you look at the resume, you might look at Amelia's resume and you might say to yourself, gosh, that looks pretty boring. I don't know. I want mine to look better than that. What I want you to think about is that what you're trying to do is you're trying to eliminate the distraction on your resume. You're trying to put things in a place that employers can really see what's important right off the bat without looking all over the place. And you want the most important things that you have to offer as close to the top of the page as possible. So let me walk you through the sections, and Lynn's going to follow the chat in case there are any questions that are coming up there, and we'll walk you through a resume. So obviously, the most important thing that needs to go at the top of your resume is your name and your contact information. Now, what you'll see missing is Amelia's street address and her city, state, and zip code. What we're hearing more and more is that employers don't need those two pieces of information, because if they're going to contact you, they're going to contact you by either your cell phone or by an email address. What does that mean to you? It means that whatever you put up here should be the ones that you are checking on a regular basis. It means that if it's your cell phone, you have a good message on your cell phone, and that once you start sending resumes and cover letters out, you are conscious that any call that could be coming in from an employer. And the email address that's there, you especially want to make sure that that's the email address that you're following. So that goes up at the top. Where do you position it? It could either be top center. Some people put it over on the left-hand side. I've seen some people put it on the right-hand side. I think the challenge with that is that the other thing you need to remember is that all of your documents are now going to get scanned. So they're going to be scanned by this system at the employers, and the system is not savvy enough to look every place in the world for your name. So it typically looks top center and it looks top left. If you put it over to the top right, you may be submitting a resume that has no name on it. So just some things to think about. While we're talking about that top of the resume, they've actually done some searching, and they found that the place that the employers look are this upper left-hand quadrant of the resume. So basically where your education and the very top of this related experience show up. And what that means to you as the writer of a resume is that the most important things that you have to offer, you want to be sure that that information is up at the top of the page, even if it means that you have to create your own heading. So for all of you, probably almost to a person, the most important thing that you have to offer is the fact that you are working on a degree. And so your education should be the first section that's there. Under your education, there's usually a sequence that the material follows. So you indicate the university granting the degree and where it's located. The University of Rhode Island, Kingston, Rhode Island. We're not in North Kingstown. We're not in South Kingstown. It's Kingston, Rhode Island. The next line is the degree that you are earning. This is probably one of the biggest errors that I see on business resumes. You are all earning a Bachelor of Science degree in business administration. And over on the right-hand side, you put your graduation date, your anticipated date. We all know that something could come up and you might not finish exactly when you wanted to, or you might be able to speed things up and you can graduate early, but this is your anticipated date. The third line is where you put your major. And so you can see Amelia is an accounting major and she has a minor in Italian. So that third line down is major and minor. And you want to use bolding sparingly. And especially that bolding underline thing, I think that's a little bit of overkill, but bold the things that are important. So obviously your major and minor are important. I've seen a lot of people bold their dates. They're not important. I've seen people bold the locations of where they worked. That's not necessarily important. So save the bolding because the I will go to it. The next line down is your GPA. So if it's a 3.0 or better, you want to include it. If it's less than a 3.0, you leave it off unless you can sit down with your academic advisor, figure out what your GPA and your major is, And if that brings you to a 3.0 or better, then you can put it on your resume. And also on that line, because it's directly related to it, if you've made the dean's list, you want to put your dean's list there and the number of semesters that you earned that dean's list honor. Also under your education section would be any academic awards, honors, or scholarships that you received. If you study abroad, when you get to study abroad again, you would put the name of the institution that you studied at, the country that it was located in, and the semester that you participated in that study abroad experience. And then also under the education section, you're going to put anything that employers in your major or in the industry that you're applying to say they want to know. So I know that there are some accounting majors in the group today. If you are an accounting major and if you are planning on pursuing a career in public accounting, the accountants want you to put your 150 credit hour plan. And that is because a couple of reasons. 150 credits is usually the credit requirement to sit for the CPA, and your bigger accounting firms will determine when they offer you your internship based on when you plan on finishing up. I'm not going to go into that anymore. Happy to answer questions if you've got them. But if you are an accounting major, you need to put your 150 credit hour plan there. And there would be two ways that you could get those credits. Either you're going to take additional undergraduate credits to get you to the 150 by the time you walk across stage, or most of our students go for a 5th year and they get a master's in some area of accounting.
Kathleen, we have 2 questions for the education section right now.
Sure.
We move on. So is it all right to abbreviate the degree that we are earning? So like a BS, BA, or a BA. And then the other one is, if you have a second non-business major, how would you format that? So you are earning, you're double majored basically.
Or double degreed.
Yeah, double degree, sorry.
Sure. Okay. So just because you could abbreviate it, I mean, you could say, I've seen some people say BSBA, and sometimes I have to stop and think about what that means, even though I work in the College of Business. So I think the more guesswork that you take out of things, the better. So I would write it out, and you've got a full line to write it out. If you were earning a dual degree, then you would begin listing the degree that you want an employer to see first. So if you were earning a Bachelor of Science in Business Administration, rather than adding that other line underneath, I would move the accounting up so that it sits right next to the Bachelor of Science in Business Administration. So I'd put Bachelor of Science in Business Administration, comma, you could either say major accounting or just put accounting and bold it. And then the next line down would be, let's say, a Bachelor of Arts degree in Italian. And on both, at the end of both lines, you would indicate your graduation date. So what do you want them to see first? If you're really shooting for something using your degree in Italian, then put that first, and then business second. So it's always a priority thing. What do you want them to see first? Find a way to get it in the first spot. So that's how I would answer both of those questions. To me, they're kind of related.
Also, the other thing too is you got to think, if you're putting BS, BA, or BA, and it's a database that's scanning it, and it hasn't been programmed to pick up BS, BA, I would say write it out. That's how I would do it, just to make sure that you get through the scanning motion of it. Because if you look at the requirements for an internship or a job, and must be pursuing a bachelor's degree, I would just make sure that those words are in there, because that could be a key word for the database.
Great. The other thing that usually comes up with education is that I went to another school. Do I put that other school on there? If you went to another school and earned credits, but you didn't get a degree there, you do not need to list that other school there, because those credits that were acceptable were taken in transfer and they're now part of your URI transcript. If, however, you went to, say, the Community College of Rhode Island, another 2-year school, or if you have another school with a 4-year degree altogether, in each section, your information would appear in reverse chronological format. So you're at URI right now, maybe you just finished at CCRI, you leave a double space after your education or after your first institution, and then you would list Community College of Rhode Island, comma, Warwick, Rhode Island, Associate of Arts degree. If you received high honors or any honors, you would list them there. And then over on the right-hand side, you would put your graduation date. And the third line is that if you had a program of study, you would list what that program of study was. So that pretty much covers your education section. So now I'm just going to give you kind of a list of what can come after your education. Some of you may have professional certifications. Some of you might have related experience. Some of you might simply have work experience. Some of you might have leadership experience. Some of you might have things that could fall into a category like, gee, this is really cool, but it doesn't fall anyplace else. Where can I put it? You can create a section called notable accomplishments or academic highlights. And so many of you have campus involvement. So those are the other categories that typically fall on a resume. Everything on your resume should be things that you're doing in college. So at this point, high school goes away, high school activities and honors go away, high school work experience goes away. So you're strictly focusing on your college experience. And I'll try to think about some of the highlights from some of the different majors, so I'm not simply talking to accounting. If you're a finance major, I think all of you possess the Bloomberg certification. I know that's not quite the name, but you know what I'm talking about. So if you're a finance major and you have Bloomberg certification, you want to include that. More and more of our students are getting the Microsoft Excel certification. If you possess that certification, these two things are professional certifications that are going to stay with you for life. You want to include those there. Other things, if you're a supply chain major, you will have your Six Sigma, at least your yellow belt, hopefully your green belt. That's a professional certification that if you were in the workforce, you would be paying to get that certification. You want to have it there. If you're finance and you've sat for one of the CFA exams, you would want to put that there. I've seen some students who have worked in insurance firms in the summer and they have some of their licensing exams completed because as part of an internship, an employer, an employer put you through that track and you've actually got that license. That would be something that would be there. And I would say that if you're a marketing major and you have any kind of a certification in any of the social media areas, that would be something to see there. So now as we're looking at the upper left-hand quadrant of your resume, what I see is a student with a degree who already has professional certifications. Now, if you don't have them, don't worry about it. But check with your curriculum, check with your program of study, check with your curriculum sheet. Is there anything that you can pick up there that you could put in that category because it's going to help you stand out? Oh, and I think the other thing that could go there, I was talking to a student yesterday who had a dual major with a language. If you are pursuing a degree in language, usually you are tested at least annually And so the level of proficiency that you have in a language could go up there. And again, you're going to put it there if it relates to what it is that you want to do. So now let's move down. The next thing, or the rest of your resume, should really be built to show an employer that somehow you possess the skills that they are looking for in the position that they're hiring for. So if there's a way that you can show an employer that you can talk the talk, that you understand accounting or finance or supply chain or marketing or innovation and entrepreneurship or a language or international business, you want to find a way to get that experience as close to the top of the page as possible. The easiest way to reflect that is if you have an internship. So it would be called related experience. And then whatever that related experience is, you would list the company and where it's located. The next line would be your title and your dates of employment. And then using a bullet, a verb, and a phrase, you're going to convey the duties that you performed in that position. Now, what do you want to start with? You want to start with the thing that's most related to the job that you're applying for. Because remember, every time you write a resume or send a resume out, it's not a history of everything that you've done. It's taking a look at everything that you've done and it's positioning it so it's going to get you to where you want to go next. So that's the important thing that I want you to remember. So if for this accounting intern that was at KPMG, maybe every day what that person did was they worked on the manual. However, the thing that they want an employer to see is that they've got Excel competency. So that's what they started out with. So basically, you're always going to be looking at the job description that you're applying to, and you're going to capture the keywords that are in that job description, and you're going to try to find a way through the verbs that you use and the duties that you perform to show the employer that you possess them. People kind of get obsessed with, well, how many bullets? I always say, shoot for 4. Some people say, well, I can only have 2 bullets per job. No, if it's an important job, you want to spend as much time with what you've done in that position as possible. So if you've had related experience, maybe you've had 2 opportunities like Amelia did, she's put them in reverse chronological order. That means what she did most recently and then going back. And when possible, you want to try to show the differences in the positions that you've had. So maybe in one position you were working more one-on-one with clients, and in another one you might be working in a team setting, so that by the time people finish looking at your jobs, they sort of see this whole broad spectrum of things that you can do. The other thing that Amelia did, and this occurs in so many of your majors right now, is that there are case competitions. So if you were selected to be part of a case competition, they have them in accounting. I've seen them in finance. I've seen them in marketing. I've seen them, obviously, there are pitch competitions all the time in innovation and entrepreneurship. NABA has them. If you're involved in a case competition, this is really great stuff. And you want to be sure that you have it as close to the top of your resume so that it's showing close to your major, because case competitions demonstrate that you can, first of all, there's a selection process. It shows that you can work in a team. It shows that you can analyze and synthesize information. And usually there's some kind of a presentation to people who are judging you. So it's developing your public speaking skills. So if you have an opportunity to join a case competition, jump in on it. And typically it would go under related experience. Lynn, is there anything over in the chat room that I need to hit?
Nope, they just asked if they'd have access to the recording. I just said it'd have to be sent to the College of Business Communications first. Usually they edit it and then it would go through, but I'm not quite sure when that would happen. That's the only question that I have so far.
All right. Anything that I forgot that you want to throw in there?
No, I think you hit the nail on the head with all of the jobs and experience that you've had, and really how I think the main thing that I spend a lot of time talking with students about is really how you want to market yourself to what you're applying to. So really thinking about what you're applying to and bringing that up closer to the top, and really using headings of the experience that you've had to market yourself, because that's really what you're doing.
And I know we have one of our instructors, Miss Imundi. Is there anything that you wanted to add from a finance perspective? No, okay.
No, thank you. Thank you. I'm listening intently, though. I'm learning a lot. Thank you.
All right.
And we did have a question about related coursework on the resume. And so that's
yeah.
an area.
Thank you. I'm sorry. Yeah, normally under education, if until the time that you've had related experience, you can add a line in that's called related coursework. And so you would pick 3 or 4 of your upper level courses that relate to the major or relate to the position that you're applying to, and you list them simply by name, definitely not by number, and you definitely don't put a course description there. So it could be intermediate accounting 1 and 2, comma, auditing, or international supply chain, or marketing principles and international marketing. So whatever your titles are, you list them there. And why? Because what we all want is we all want you to feel confident and that you have some really good things that you can talk about in an interview. And until the time that you've done an internship, you may not have done a lot of things that relate. But if you've got your coursework up there, at least an employer can see the level of theory that you have in your discipline so that it can become a talking point during an interview. Obviously, if you hated the class, if you didn't do well in the class, if you can't explain the class, you don't want to put it up there, because honestly, anything that you put on your resume is fair game, and you have absolutely no idea what is going to draw somebody's attention when they look at the resume. And I have an example with Excel, but I can't, it's not framing in my head right, so I won't even use it right now.
I have 2 questions while you think about that, if you want.
Sure.
So it's interesting. Someone asked about present tense. I wrote it down as a note before you even posted in there. So just remember your past and present tense in your job bullets. So present tense, you're doing it. And then past tense, you have finished it. So make sure that you're clear with that. So yes, you'd use present tense for describing jobs that you presently have. And then also someone asked about where you'd put club heading, any kind of clubs or leadership that you're involved in. And then one other person asked, if you don't have a lot of experience, what would you put on your resume? So I'll let you take those.
Okay, we'll work it in from here on in. All right, so that's what happens if you have related experience. If you don't have related experience, one great talking point that you can have, if you choose to put it there, is to think about the classes that you've taken in your major and say, was there a great project that I did in my class that if by talking about it, I could show an employer what I know about the field of accounting, finance, supply chain, innovation and entrepreneurship, management, marketing. If there is, then instead of calling this section related experience, you would call it related project work. Instead of putting a company name there, you would put the title of the class that you are talking about. The semester that you took it would go over on the right-hand margin. And then you're going to use your bullets, verbs, and phrases again to describe what it is that you did in the project. So usually in the project, there's some kind of a case or a problem that was presented to you. So that might be your first bullet. Usually in a case or a project, you're working in a team. You can talk about the number of team members that were in the team. And then what did you do? I was talking to someone this week about a supply chain project, and they said, well, I had to get the project from the East Coast to the West Coast. Well, you know, if that's all you can say about it, you might not want to put it down there. But my guess is that if you really thought about how the instructor taught what needed to be worked through in the project, you would have an opportunity to use a lot of the verbs that are related to your discipline. So if you were researching traffic patterns, if you were negotiating contracts, if you were utilizing Excel to discern or pull out some feature, those are all things that could go under your project. And I hear from all the faculty that there's a project in almost every class that they teach. So really think about the projects that you might have just overlooked, because it could give you a talking point in or for your resume and for your interview. All right. You go, no, I thought about it. We had COVID last spring. There were no projects. All right. So then the next section down for you is going to be, instead of calling it other experience, it's going to be called either experience or work experience. And under this section, you're going to think about all the jobs that you've had while you've been in college. You're going to put them in reverse chronological order. And you are going to, like above, the name of the company, where it was located, title, dates of employment, and then using a bullet, a verb, and a phrase, convey what you did. So most of you have probably been a waiter or a waitress, and you know that what you really do all day is you take orders and you deliver food, and maybe you bus tables. Well, any employer would know that that's what goes along with being a waiter or a waitress. But there are what we call soft skills that you're using in any job that you have. And as you read more and more job descriptions, hopefully you read 2 or 3 of them last week for the scavenger hunt. As you start looking at the qualifications, there's usually a few things that relate to your major, sometimes a lot of things that relate to your major. And then as it winnows down, it will say like the ability to work in a team, an entrepreneurial spirit, the ability to work in a fast-paced environment, good customer service skills. Those are the things you want to focus on in the job instead of being really literal and say, I delivered food and I bussed tables. So Amelia is looking at her waitressing job in light of the fact that she's an accounting major. So she managed financial records. They gave her the responsibility of opening and closing the facility. She maintained a professional and friendly attitude while serving customers, and she developed problem-solving skills. So suddenly, and I know we've all been to Tony's Pizza, maybe not in Smithfield, but you know, down the road from the college, you really know that what they're doing is they're taking orders and delivering food. But she's made this job sound like something really interesting that she could talk about with an employer. And that's what you want to do. She didn't have a lot of time to break down her lifeguard position. But if you were a lifeguard, if you were a camp counselor, if you were a clerk someplace, there are all duties that you're doing. I mean, if you're a camp counselor, some family is entrusting you with their child. So there's a responsibility involved. If you're a camp counselor, there's teamwork that's involved. If you're a camp counselor, there's usually activities that you need to plan. You're supervising a group of kids. And oftentimes there are disciplinary things that need to come to the front. So maybe you might not be actually disciplining the child, but you've got to bring it to your supervisor. So there are team meetings. Sometimes you do need to talk to parents. So those are all things that you can pull out of what you would call, I have a job, but I didn't do very much in it. I hear the same thing from people that have work study jobs at college. You know, you're dealing with a variety of clientele. If you're in a work study position, you're working with students and you're working with faculty and you're working with staff. I've talked to people that are working at Facciatelli. You're enforcing COVID protocols right now. I mean, there's some big things that you're doing in these positions if you really think about what it is that you're doing and what it is that you're learning. So I hope that answered the part of the question that says, what if I haven't had a lot of experience? My guess, most of you have had work experience, and then you pull those soft skills out, and you know that for the rest of this year, for this summer, for the remaining time that you have at URI, you're going to try to get something that's more related that you can embellish your resume with. And so then usually after that, you would go to campus involvement or community service, something along those lines. If within that organization you hold a leadership position, that's the one that you want to list first. And this could be a fraternity or a sorority. It could be any kind of club that you're involved with. So if there's a leadership position involved, lead with that and then go back. And if everything is a club involvement without a leadership position, aspire to one, but talk about what you were doing in that club if in fact you need to fill space on your resume.
I have a few questions for you, Kathleen.
Yep.
So one person asked if they had a lot of smaller jobs, do we include the top 3 or more? So that would go back in about time.
Yep.
So, and then the other one is, do we still need to include previous employers' contact information?
Okay.
And then is enforcing COVID-19 protocol something we should include?
Okay, so I think I hit the last one. If you're enforcing COVID protocol, you definitely do, because you're enforcing protocols that have been established by the state that you were working in.
It's also, when I think of that too, it's a directive that's following, like you said, the rules and requirements, but also showing that you might have had to keep tallies in how many people came into the building. So it's something that you could talk about of managing that paperwork, you know, and stuff like that. So it's definitely a conversation of how did you do that? It could come up.
Right. And I think the other thing, and this hasn't come up yet, but I mean, if somebody comes into a facility and they didn't have a mask on and the facility required the wearing of a mask and you had to speak with that person, oftentimes in an interview, somebody will say, can you talk about a time that you were in a challenging situation at work and how did you resolve it? So again, it could be a talking point that you want to bring up. If it is, then you want to be sure that it's on your resume so that you're not just pulling it out of the air. Oh yeah, I forgot to put it down, but I did this. So just think about that. If you've had a lot of smaller jobs, it depends how small the jobs were. I mean, I think the big thing that you need to remember is when you first start doing your resume, it's a challenge to fill one page. It's like, oh my God, how am I going to fill all this spot? By the time you're graduating, if you start doing interesting things, it's like, oh my God, how am I going to get it down to one page? Because you only want a one-page resume. So when you first do your resume, if you were a nanny, you might have 5 bullets that relate to being a nanny. Afterwards, if you've added leadership experience or related project work and a couple of jobs, you might still want to include the nanny position on your resume, but you might not want to use bullets for it. So ultimately, you might get to a section where it's called other experience. And then simply in that section, you would list Tony's Pizza Palace, Smithfield, Rhode Island waitress and the dates. Hyatt Regency Hotel, Goat Island, pool lifeguard and the dates. And there are no bullets underneath. And there may come a time where that goes off altogether on your resume and it goes to live on LinkedIn. So that's how I would view those smaller positions. I would say, what of everything that you've done most relates to the position that you're applying for and shows the complement of skills that you can offer to an employer, and that's what you want to put there. And contact information for an employer should never be on your resume. So I know in some instances they tell you to put it there. I would save that information because you might need to contact that employer for a reference, but it doesn't go on your resume.
And just about what goes on your resume and not, you don't need to waste a line that you'll need eventually of saying references available upon request, because obviously if you want the job or internship, you're going to give them references. So it's kind of just filling space that you know you're going to do. And like Kathleen was saying, eventually it'll come to the point of, okay, what do I need to have on here and what is going to come off because you only have one space, or how small can I make the font so people can still read it? You know, so those are the things that you're going to want to start adjusting. But as you're building it, you'll say, wow, this is a lot to fill.
Right. So now let's go back to that leadership question. Maybe as you keep going through your years at URI, you find that everything that you've had is a leadership position. So maybe you're an RA, which means that oftentimes in the summertime, you either choose to apply or you're selected to be an orientation assistant. Maybe you're the head of tour guides. Maybe you're the president of a fraternity, sorority, club, or organization. You might have this really great section that's called leadership experience. And so what I would do is I would pull all those leadership opportunities and I'd clump them under a section that's called leadership experience. You'd still set it up as if it were a job. So it would be University of Rhode Island, Kingston, Rhode Island, resident assistant, and the dates that you were an RA. And your bullets, verbs, and phrases would then take on sort of management duties, because that is a management and an enforcement position. So that's kind of how I would view it. And where would you put it? So if you had education and you had related experience, to me, I would probably put leadership before other work experience. If you don't have related experience, you might do education, leadership experience, other work experience. So you run the ship as to how you want to order things after you get your education on the page, depending on what you view is most important, but not what you view as most important, but more what's most related to the job that you're applying to. So one thing that I hear over and over again when students do mock interviews with me and they answer questions, they immediately go to the clubs and organizations that they're involved with on campus. And that's phenomenal that you've got that experience. But an employer is going to want to hear first what you've done that's related to your major, and then they want to know about your leadership experience. So that's sort of how I would triage things on your resume, if that makes sense. And I don't have anything else to say about resumes. I don't know if there are any more questions over there.
Someone just asked about references on a resume, and I just wrote that they don't go on a resume and that you would always check with your references first. Whenever I've applied for a job, I'll use myself as an example. I know that basically I'd always check with my references and say, I'm going to be applying for this. Could I use you as a reference? Because sometimes people don't want to do it. So you have to, and then they let them know, like, this is kind of, you're my reference for, you know, I don't know, project-based work or something like that, because we did a project together. So that's something you always want to check with them about. Usually the company will ask you for the references, and it's usually after you've kind of made it through an interview. However, there are some times that a company will ask for them up front, but it's a separate document, and that's usually not in an internship process. every company, for instance, the state asks for references ahead of time in a separate document in the interview process. So you'd want to make sure you check with them ahead of time. But there's just a few funky ones like that, but does not go on the resume. The other thing is I really challenge everyone to go in and look at all the different resumes that Kathleen has put in that career section. And the reason why I say that is because each of them are very unique, and they have different sections. So you might be a finance major, but have a lot of leadership experience. So take a look at one of the other resumes that have a leadership section. You could be in the management area, look at, a different resume. In global business, it might have something a lot about clubs. So each section in each resume is a little bit different. So go and take a look at them and just kind of say, oh, this one speaks to me. I like this section, or this one over here, I like this section. And you kind of build your own instead of just looking at the one resume that relates to your major. The other thing is related project work that Kathleen talked about in a resume is a great way to fill in that language of your major in that project that you did, especially since unfortunately a lot of us were impacted by internships that were ended due to COVID last spring. So just remember that that's a good way to kind of have that language piece in there, like Kathleen said. And eventually, that might go off after you get the internship. But those are some things that I've worked with students. But definitely take a look at all those other resumes. They're really helpful.
I think the last section that I forgot to mention was skills. So if you have a skill section, I would say really take a look at what you put down there. If it's something that really should be at the top of the page, at the top of your resume, is there a way that you can, that you can move it up? Can you create a heading to move it up? And I think of our marketing students, and oftentimes marketing students are getting hired for internships and full-time jobs because of their social media proficiency. So if you have proficiencies in those different areas of social media, you might create a section after education and before experience that says social media proficiency and list the platforms that you're proficient in using. Make sure you're proficient in using them. We all know, so many people have heard the story that somebody said they were proficient in Spanish, and one of our students was interviewing for a position, and halfway through the interviewer switched to Spanish and started conducting the interview. The student wasn't proficient in Spanish, and it was really a tough thing for him. The Excel example that I wanted to give, I'm so proficient in Excel, I couldn't even remember the words. I remember a student had pivot tables and VLOOKUPs on his resume. And I was really curious to know more about what it was and how he used them. And I said, can you explain pivot tables and VLOOKUPs to me? And he started getting red from the neck up. It went all the way up, and he couldn't. So what I'm saying to you is really be conscious of what you know, and don't be afraid to put what you know and you're comfortable talking about out there. If you think somebody wants to hear something but you can't explain it, don't put it on there, because you never know what somebody's going to look at. So I think that's my final thing about resumes. Every time you do a resume, you're expected to do a cover letter. And unless there are a couple of companies that I know that we deal with that say, do not submit a cover letter. Well, if the company says do not submit a cover letter, do not do it, because if you do, it will show that you're not following directions. But if they don't say it, the assumption is that you are going to submit a cover letter. And the format that a cover letter takes goes back to a time when employers were sending things out and communicating more in a formal letter format, for lack of a better word. And so they want to be sure that you know these business protocols. So they want to be sure that you know how to set up a professional business letter. And that's why you take Writing 227, and that's why we repeat it again in Business 390. So for the purposes of 390, how do you set up a cover letter? You can choose to copy the heading from your resume onto a blank page. Excuse me. I knew a sneeze was coming. I'm sorry.
Bless you.
Thank you. You can copy that heading over and sort of create the look of your own stationery. So Amelia went one step more and she actually put her address here. She simply could have put her name and her phone number and her email address. But you get the look. It's kind of like this nice heading. And if that's what you decide to do, then under the heading, you would put the date. And under that, you would put the name of the person that you're addressing your letter to, the title of that person, what is his role or her role, the organization, their street mailing address, and then the city, state, and zip code, and then you leave 2 spaces. Some people say, that's way too fancy for me. I want to keep it simple. If you're keeping it simple, then over here in the upper left-hand corner, you would put your street address. The next line, it would be your city, state, and zip code. And the third line would be the date. What I'm saying to you is on a professional cover letter, unless you're using a letterhead, you do not put your name at the top. So unless you're using the stationary look, the upper left-hand corner reflects just your address and your date, and then you would move on to the company information. So it's not like a paper that you're handing in, it's a letter that you're writing. And I think that's the distinction that I would like to make there. I've already heard from some people, because depending on where you find the job positions, sometimes you can't find a hiring manager. So I know that Monday night, your resume, cover letter, and thank you letter are due. What are you going to do? I would say, first of all, if it's in Handshake, do a real good look. You might find that information that you're looking for there. If it came from Indeed or from some other site, I would go to the company webpage and see if you can either find a hiring manager name or a director of human resources. If that doesn't work, you can simply say hiring manager and the name of the organization. Or, you know, what I told one of the students in my class is use me. What I want to know is that you know how to set up a cover letter if you're going to send it out. So if you can't find out anything, make up a name so that it shows that you understand that when you're doing a cover letter, after the date, it's the name of the company representative, his or her title, the organization, the street and address, and the city, state, and zip code. Unless you're applying to a company, yeah, I'm not even going there. That's what you want to display there. So if you have to be a little bit creative with the name for the purpose of this assignment, show your instructor that you know how to set up a professional cover letter. After that, you leave 2 spaces, and now there's what we call the greeting of the letter. And so it would be Dear Mr. or Ms. and the person's last name. And that's followed by a colon, which is the dot over the dot. I've seen them come in with a comma. I've seen them come in with a semicolon. No, it's Dear Mr. or Ms. last name and the colon, even if you know that person. So if you're applying to your uncle for a position, don't put Dear Uncle Mike or Dear Aunt Susie. Use that person's real name, because this is a professional correspondence. It's a professional letter, and you want to reflect that. Now, typically, your cover letter is going to be 3 paragraphs long. And so each paragraph of the cover letter has a function that you should be incorporating in that area. So the opening paragraph, the purpose of that is you're trying to establish a connection with the employer. You're trying to build sort of like a basic match between you and this position that you're applying for. So often you indicate the name of the position that you're applying for. how you heard about it, because employers are very interested in what of their marketing techniques are working. So did you hear about it from Handshake? Did you hear about it on Indeed? Did you hear about it at Career Day? Were you referred? If you were referred, there's this nice connection that occurs. You want to get that name in there. So all of those things could be how you heard about the position. And then before you keep writing, what simple connection can you put in there that's going to make the employer keep reading your cover letter? So maybe you met somebody at a club event. Maybe you did research on their company in your class. Maybe they spoke at Career Day. Maybe if somebody gave you $100, this is the only place you would spend your money. That's how strongly you feel about that company. What is it? Why are you interested in applying for this job? And that interest, that capturing somebody's invitation or attention is what goes up in that opening paragraph. Now, the middle paragraph is the heart of your cover letter. And in the middle paragraph, this is where you do your match. And what you're doing is you're matching those keywords that you found in the job description with the skills and qualities that you possess. Now, this little, I call it a T-bar, the them and me thing in here. This is something that I created because it's always helped me in writing a cover letter. So maybe it's a trick or a technique that will help you. So before I write the middle paragraph of any cover letter, I go back to the job description and I highlight the keywords and duties and competencies that are required. And I put them down on the left-hand side of my T-bar. And then on the right-hand side of my T-bar, I say, what's the best example I have that I can do pivot tables and VLOOKUPs? And maybe you've got the Microsoft Excel certification. So that's your match there. Maybe it will say the ability to work in a team. Well, of everything that you've done, what's the best example you have that you can work in a team? Maybe it's problem solving. What example do you have that you can do problem solving? Maybe it will say they want you to have an entrepreneurial spirit. Maybe you started your own online company during COVID as a way to raise money. So suddenly you've taken their keywords, which, trust me, the scanners at their company are going to be looking for those keywords, and you are matching your skills to them. So if you've already watched the video that's in the class this week, you'll see that 75% of the documents, the resumes and cover letters that are submitted, are weeded out by a company because they do not contain the keywords that are in the job description. We're spending time with you this morning because we want you to know how important these keywords are. Use them in the middle paragraph of your cover letter to make the match. And then the last paragraph is how you intend to follow up. So, honestly, most of my cover letters say, enclosed is a copy of my resume that further outlines my experience. Thank you for your time and consideration. I look forward to hearing from you soon. So that last paragraph is not a complicated one. Honestly, you could just take away these quotes, run the 3 sentences together, and you would have a good last paragraph. Then after that, you leave 2 spaces, do a double space, type the word sincerely, and type your name. So remember, in terms of cover letters, each paragraph has a function. Remember that after you get your documents, the way you want them to, before you actually send them to an employer, you want to save and send them as a PDF. And that's because there are so many different programs out there. If it's locked into a PDF format, what's on your screen is going to be how it opens up on their computer. And save it by last name, first name, resume, last name, first name, cover letter. And I'm not sure if there are any questions over in the chat room on cover letters.
It's just about the cover letter with the details or keep the paragraphs concise. And I think you answered that. I think the main thing with a cover letter is, for me, when I look at it, is everything you said, but also knowing that there's 3 distinct paragraphs. And I know sometimes some of you people who can write really, really well, you just go off like it's like crazy, crazy, crazy. And you just don't want to give that to an employer because they might not read the whole thing. So the 3 paragraphs are really important. And then that middle paragraph, you want to be making that connection, like Kathleen said, but not reiterating what's in your resume. So I always say that middle paragraph is a great way to something that wouldn't really fit in a bullet that makes sense with their keywords. You'd put it in there. It makes a difference because this is also a sample of your writing skills. And I see cover letters being offered or asked for more frequently in a position that you have to write. I see it a lot with marketing, in social media type jobs, because you're going to be representing that company and they want to make sure that you can have a capital letter or have a period at the end of a sentence and those types of things. The other thing is with a cover letter, just to waiver on, if you do in that first paragraph say the name of a company or where you heard about the internship or job, make sure that when you are using that cover letter again for another job, that you really read it out loud, because I've seen people submit a cover letter with the wrong company name in it. So maybe they were sending something to CVS and it should be going to Textron, but they are sending it to Textron and it still has the CVS name in it. So when in doubt, read your documents out loud, because you will find grammatical errors that way, just like you're practicing for a speech.
Now, for whatever reason, when they organized the material on the College of Business webpage, they did not put the thank you letter with the resumes. So let's go back to career services. Let's come on down and let's look at interviewing. So a few weeks from now, when you're going to get into interviewing, here's where all your good information is. And this is also where the sample thank you letter is. So let's click on that for a minute. To me, your cover letter almost mirrors your thank you letter almost mirrors your cover letter. So some people choose to do a very formal looking thank you letter. They copy that header over again. They do the whole setup. They still have their 3 paragraphs, and then they attach this to an email. The other way that you could do it, the way that I prefer at this point, is to do an email version of the thank you letter. The only thing that changes is that this heading isn't here. So if you're doing an email thank you, the one thing that I hear from employers is make sure you have something in the subject line and make sure it's definitive enough so that they want to read the letter and they don't think it's, some kind of junk mail that's coming through. So put thank you for purchasing interview, or thank you email from and your name. But put something in that subject line to let them know that it's a valid email that they need to read. So in your cover letter, or in your thank you letter, you're going to have 3 paragraphs again. And in the first paragraph, you thank the person for the opportunity to interview. Most of these people are really busy and they have tons of interviews that they're doing. So it's good to restate the position that you applied for or interviewed for and the date that you interviewed. And then your last sentence should be what your biggest takeaway was. So if you did an interview with a company, that means that you spent 45 minutes with them, probably on average. Sometimes if they give you a tour, it's even longer than that. So you're starting to get a feel for the company. From everything that you experienced during the interview, why do you want to be considered? Why do you want to continue in the process? Why do you hope that you're the one that gets the offer? So that you want to capture that feeling and that sentiment, and that goes in the opening paragraph of your thank you letter. Now, to continue through that matching process, The body of your cover letter is going to be a rematch. So you are rematching your skills and strengths and your education, but now with what you actually learned during an interview. So sometimes what you see in a job description, it takes on like a little bit of a different look when you actually get into the organization. Maybe you never realized that an organization had so much teamwork going on, or you had no idea what projects they were working on. And now that you get in there and you hear about it, you are even more excited, and you realize even more that you have all the experiences that you're looking for. That's what you want to convey in that middle paragraph. You want to reacquaint the interviewer with everything it is that you're bringing to the table that relates to that position. And the last paragraph is a closing paragraph. Often it says, from everything that I've learned, I'm even more excited to join the team at Fidelity. If you need any additional information, do not hesitate to contact me. Thank you for your time, and I look forward to hearing from you soon. You leave the 2 spaces, type sincerely, and type your name. I will tell you that writing cover letters and thank you letters are the hardest things that you can do. It's an acquired skill. You need to keep practicing with it. And I think the more you do it, the more comfortable you get with it. Know that the Writing Center exists. If your writing is not your forte, you can go to them and you can get some help. Like, I've gotten this far and I'm stuck. You can bring the samples that we're showing so that they're teaching you or they're showing you how to make some changes based on what it is that we're telling you should be there. And we're only telling you that it should be there because that's what our employers are telling us that they want. So know that the Writing Center is there as a support, and I'm sure whatever instructor you have for 390 will help you through this class if you get stuck. And certainly Lynn and I are here after the class to help you with any cover letters and thank you letters and resume questions you have after the class.
So we have a question. Can anything be done if you submit an application without a cover letter when a cover letter is needed? So I know that in databases now, it usually doesn't allow you to submit. It's almost like you haven't finished the application unless you attach a document. I know in Handshake, usually if there's a required feature such as, you have to upload your resume and then you have to upload a cover letter. I know sometimes accounting firms will say you have to upload the 150 plan. The employer sets the preference on that. So you can't even finish the application without adding that. So it's almost like you're kind of like still working on it if you were to close it. If you happen to submit something and it didn't go through, well, then I would be surprised that would happen anyways because of databases. I guess you could send it along and say, this didn't attach. I mean, because how many times have we sent an email, it didn't attach? But usually that wouldn't happen in a database. Sometimes employers want you to email the stuff. I could see where that would happen where it didn't attach into an email. I guess I would want to know more of the timeline. So is it you submitted it like I was doing it right now, and then, oh my God, it didn't attach, and then you send it right along? Or did you go back 3 days later and submit it? So then I'd kind of say, oh, I don't know if that's a good idea. So that's something you'd have to kind of either talk about with Kathleen or myself. I'd want to know a little more about it before I'd say, yes, send it along. Then it makes you look like you're late. But like I said, most databases won't allow you to submit. Kathleen, do you want to chime in on what happens if you've submitted an application without a cover letter when a cover letter is needed?
Well, I would say that this is why it's really helpful to have contact information for an employer, because then you could always say, I could have sworn that I attached it, but when I looked back, I realized that it didn't. and then you could send it along. I think, just the more professional and honest you are about it, and just get it in, acknowledging that you made a mistake is better than just pretending it didn't happen. So I would say find a way to try to get it to them, and, know that, it's like when you send an email and you forgot to put the attachment. I mean, I'm guilty of that all the time, and I hate when I do it. So the best thing I can say is, I'm really sorry. I thought I had attached this, and here it is now.
I guess that's the good thing about databases. It takes away the personalness of it, but a database usually stops those types of errors, which is kind of nice. That it can be helpful because, you get so excited, you're nervous, you spend all this time on your resume, you spend all this time on it, and then, oh my God, I forgot to add it. So a database usually prevents those things, considering the employer's the one who sets the preferences on the back end of what has to happen, or what the candidate would have to submit.
Okay. I know we're about an hour into this, so gosh, an hour and a half. I'm sorry you've been listening to me that long. All right, I'm going to show you my LinkedIn profile. So LinkedIn is important because this is where employers are looking for you and about you. They're posting jobs on LinkedIn. LinkedIn, the best way I describe it is it's like a professional Facebook. It captures your profile, it captures your goals, it captures what you're looking for. It allows you to have an online network of people who are out there supporting you and can serve as a resource to you. It's a great place to capture things that no longer fit on your resume. I'm just going to show you what mine looks like. I'm going to talk you through the different sections so you know what goes in each section and what we're expecting next week when you do the LinkedIn profile. I'm going to pull up a couple of companies just to show you what happens on them, and then I'm going to turn it over to Lynn. So here is my LinkedIn profile.
I can't see it.
Whoops.
But we do see interviewing resources and other resources, which building your LinkedIn is there so that you can find
Now,
that
can you
on
see
the website. Yes, we can see it now.
Okay, here's my LinkedIn profile. There are, I think it's 5 key things that we're looking for your LinkedIn profile when you create yours. And this is one of those times where I would say, if you can't put the time in to doing a really good LinkedIn profile, it's probably doing you more harm than good to have something up there. Now, obviously for this class, you have to create it, but I know a lot of times people will tell you when you're a freshman, you really need to have a LinkedIn profile. And so you go throw something up there, you forget it's there. And then all of a sudden you come to the passport class and you go, oh, I've already got a LinkedIn profile. And your instructor is going to say, oh my gosh, go back and do it all over again. So don't get insulted. It's just that now that you're this close to the job search process, there are certain things that an employer is looking for on it. So the first thing is you want to have a profile picture. We're talking about a professional profile picture. So the picture that you create, the picture that you have up there should reflect the you that if you were going on an interview, this is how you would present yourself. So it shouldn't be a very casual picture. It shouldn't be a picture where you cropped everybody else out and somebody's arm is still over your shoulder. When we say professional, it's what you would wear to an interview. It's not you dressed up. So a lot of times I see people who will put something that they wore to a wedding or a very formal event up there as their professional picture. It's a great picture. It's not the right one. I know, especially with men who graduated from, I think it's private schools, oftentimes you took your picture in a tux. If you have that picture up there, again, it's a great picture, but it's not reflecting the professional you that's getting ready to be hired by a company. So what do you do now? Mine needs to be redone because we haven't had a professional photographer in a while, but get dressed the way you would normally dress for an interview and have one of your roommates or a friend do a headshot of you on your phone and upload that for now. And at the time that we have professional photographers come on campus again, you can have your picture redone, but it should reflect the job search you. Now this section that appears right under your name is called a headline. And basically what I want you to think about is these are the search terms that an employer would search for you by. So what kind of a job is it that you're looking for? And how, if somebody were to put a couple of keywords in a LinkedIn search for you, what would you want to be found by? And that's what we were trying to get a little bit at with that introductory video. What are your key skills that you want somebody to search for you by? I see a lot of students that simply put student at URI. Well, I can assure you that most employers are not going to be doing a search for a student at URI. They might be looking for a finance major or an accounting major or a supply chain major or a marketing major or somebody in international business, but they're not going to put student at URI. The other thing that I've seen people do is I've seen people put server at Cellos. Nobody's going to be searching for a server at Cellos. They might be looking for somebody with the ability to build strong relationships, to bring a group to consensus, somebody that has excellent teamwork capabilities, someone who is a junior accounting major looking for an internship. So use the words that you want to be searched by, because that's what they are doing on the human resources end, on the back end of LinkedIn. Now, the next section down is this about section. And I'm going to open this up so you can see the whole thing. Anyway, the about section is sort of you writing a personal statement about yourself. It's a personal, professional statement about yourself. So this gives you an opportunity to use the first person in describing yourself as a professional and what you're looking for to a potential employer. So it might start out by saying, I am currently a junior innovation and entrepreneurship major at the University of Rhode Island. During my time at URI, I've taken, and you might list some classes. I've also gotten involved in the monthly pitch program. And in the pitch program, I received first place 3 times. I find that I'm an individual that loves to work in a team, loves the challenge, constantly have new ideas, and I'm looking for ways to do this in an internship setting. In the past, I've been very involved with my clubs and organizations. So you're telling your story, but you're telling your story focusing on these professional skills that you're developing that you're looking to bring to an employer. It takes a long time to write the about section. I think it took me a day, and I'm an English major, but I wanted to get it right, and I wanted to be sure that what was up there was about me. So it evolves over time, but I think that you really need to, like where I see the most mistakes in LinkedIn, I see people not spending time with whatever they want in their headline and them not really developing their about. Okay. The other section that needs to be on your resume is your experience section. And your experience section is basically you pulling the material from your resume and putting it in LinkedIn. And the mistake that I see in this section is that a lot of times people just drop the titles, the companies that they work for and their titles, and they don't put any of the duties underneath. So you want to be sure that if this is all they see and they never look at your resume, you want to be sure that the same depth of attention is in your LinkedIn profile as was on your resume. If you've got any of those special certifications, that's a special certification that you can put there. I believe the section can really be expanded than just volunteer experience. It can be clubs and organizations. Those are the things that we're focusing on in terms of your LinkedIn profile. And after you get your profile set, you want to be connecting to your instructor, and you also want to be connecting with 5 professional contacts. So it could be your faculty members, it could be previous employers, but you want to be connecting, you want to start building that network, because as you add people to your network, you're adding their network to your network. So I have over 500 connections. When you connect with me, you're making connections with my connections. And most of my connections on here are URI College of Business alums. So you're connecting with a really rich alumni network as you're connecting with each individual that you are making that connection with. Lynn, do you think that's enough?
Yeah, I think that covers a good amount of things. I think the one thing that I just recently saw that I was kind of surprised about is that someone in that featured area uploaded their resume into that feature area. And I really don't recommend doing that, because your resume is supposed to adapt and change with what you apply to. So I just really say, take the time to put that information into LinkedIn, like Kathleen has advised, and take the time to put the bullets in, because when you're looking at that and I don't know you and I'm looking at that LinkedIn, I want to see that information about what you learned or what you accomplished at that job. So take the time and do that. Definitely have a picture, because I'm an offender of never having a really great LinkedIn picture, and people won't connect to you if you don't have a picture, because they don't know who you are. So that's something that I definitely say, put in that professional picture that represents you as a young business professional. And it really matters. Those things matter. As soon as someone receives a resume, I just want you to be aware that a lot of times they go and look you up in LinkedIn before they even interview you. I don't even know why, but it happens. They get excited about who's interested in their job or internship. So before you start sending everything out, take the time to really manage your LinkedIn. Obviously, your resume and cover letter, those documents have to be done anyways to apply, but it matters.
Right, and I know, so here's an example. And this happens so often. Lynn will say, do you know this person? And I'll say, gosh, that name sounds really familiar, but I can't put a face with the name. Because I'm connected to so many people on LinkedIn, the first place I look is LinkedIn. And so then however you've represented yourself on LinkedIn is what I'm bringing in. That's how I'm perceiving you as a professional. So you want to be sure that everything that's up there is really good. Now, when you get to the exercise next week, there are documents that we're having you look at that were specifically prepared by LinkedIn for college students. They're embedded in the lesson, so be sure you're using them. I'm just going to show you one other tip before I pass this all over to Lynn. I'm just putting in a company. I'm choosing one where I know I have a lot of individual contacts. So I decided to put in PwC. So when PwC pops up, what I can do is I can see what the company is. If I clicked on this, when I click on this, it will talk about what the organization is all about. So organizationally, they go through the same steps that I'm telling you to go through as an individual. They have a headline, they have an about section, and then there are different posts that they put up that they want people who are looking for jobs to know about them. Now, I happen to have 52 connections that work here. So once you connect with me, you would then have access to all of the people I know who are working at PwC. So a lot of times people will come to me and they'll say, gee, Kathleen, I've got an interview coming up at PwC. Is there anybody I can talk to? Do you know an alum that could kind of talk to me and tell me what that whole interview process was like? And I come to LinkedIn and I go, well, as a matter of fact, I do. And so here's a whole list of connections that I have that I could then connect you with. And the more established your network is, the more people you have the ability to connect out with when you're looking for things. So you might say, gee, I think I want to know somebody that just did the CPA. And so I know that Andrea Riley, I think, graduated 2 years ago. I can pull up her entire profile. And so you could say, gee, I know that that's the position that I want. Well, where did Andrea start? And so then you go, oh, look, she was an accounting intern at Textron. And then she went to PwC and, oh, look, she was a mentor. She was a URI 101 mentor. I was that. And she also worked at the Ryan Center. And so you might say, my gosh, on paper, we have so many things in common. I would love to reach out to her. So if you want to reach out to her, you can message her. You can just send her a short email. I'm currently a junior and I saw your profile on LinkedIn. I would love to connect with you because I have some questions with you about what it's like to move to Boston and what it was like to take the CPA. And 9 times out of 10, our alums get back to you really quickly. And then you have that first connection. So that's just what I wanted to show you about a company. Sometimes I'll be meeting with students and they'll say, God, I really want to work for Pete's Coffee. Do we know anybody that works at Pete's Coffee? And I go, I don't know, let's take a look. And so I'll come in here to LinkedIn and I'll put that company in there and I can do a search from there. You can do a search from there. Maybe there's a second connection that you have there that you didn't even know you had. And you can send them a message and then the professional online relationship continues from there. Hopefully they will respond to you. And then you can, you'll have access to their email address so that you could then connect with them.
And when you do reach out to them, just make sure that you do a response that is personal. So if you're reaching out to someone because you met them at a URI event or they were presented at a club, make sure you connect that in instead of the scripted message like, hi, I'd like to join your LinkedIn network. Because then that's like, oh, well, who's this person? So if you could give them how and why you're interested in connecting with them, that will make it more personal and they'll be more apt to say yes to connect with you.
So I just wanted to show you that and talk about the different key areas. Lynn and I are around to talk to you more about it if you have any questions. But while we were together, I just wanted to bring it to your attention. And now I'm going to stop sharing and I'm going to turn this over to Lynn.
Great, thanks. Let me just check. Okay, nothing else in the chat, so we're good. So I'm going to share my screen. Let's see. So we'll start with the internship and job search. Can everyone see that? All right, so that's good. So I know some things that you want to really think about with your internship and job search is that your internship search is kind of like the beginning practicing steps. Obviously, you want to land an internship so you can gain experience, but it's also the practicing steps for really your job search. So as you enter into your junior year, you might be in your senior year, all of these things are going to be happening consistently until you kind of land that full-time job. You might be searching for an internship at the same time you're searching for a full-time job. So everything that I'm going to explain to you today is really interchangeable between internship and full-time job. All the same skill sets, all the same documents that Kathleen has been talking about. So where do you start? As with any kind of search, you kind of assess kind of where your strengths, your interests. When you're thinking about an internship, you think about where can I be geographically? So, I mean, COVID has definitely changed a lot of things in the sense of we now have remote as a keyword, which I'm going to show you. So you could be doing an internship fully at home in the summer where, a year ago that wouldn't have been possible. You would have had to think, could I move to Boston? Could I move to New York? Or do I have to do one at home? So you want to think about your strengths. Think about what you're interested in, your experiences that you had, and then also think about, what do you want to do? As a management major, there's a lot that you could be applying to. As a global business major, there's a lot. If you're a finance major, maybe you're thinking about different avenues with finance. Accounting, you could be narrowing it down a little bit. Is it public? Is it private? So kind of think about those responsibilities and the employers in that way. And, this will change over time. You're going to grow with your search or your internship search or job search. Um, you know, Kathleen has said a bunch of times in this presentation that we're here to help. Know that we are. The College of Business is really unique in the sense that we have three career staff. One is an employer relations person. Kathleen's our career advisor, and then I work in the internship area. So we all work together. So we're here to help you. I just want to remind you that Kathleen, myself, Jessica, our communications staff, even our academic advising staff, we put together a College of Business newsletter for you that we send out every 2 weeks so that we kind of keep you on track of what's going on. And at the end of that newsletter, there's always jobs and internships there that come directly from Handshake. So if you're opening up that email, that's great. Now we got to get you to read it. And that's the part that we're finding is that we need to kind of push that connection of reading it. So in the beginning part of that newsletter, it's always like kind of what's going on in the next 2 weeks to keep you going. But the end part of it, I'm finding that students are not reading that bottom part. So take advantage of that. It's coming right to your email. In Business 390, what can I do with this major? If you're a general business student and you're kind of looking at different avenues, definitely go into what can I do with this major and take a look at different areas. So that's, part of the searching piece is kind of also exploring for you. There's the Occupational Outlook Handbook. There's the Occupational Information Network. That's all within what can I do with this major, and you can connect there. I don't want to take up a bunch of valuable time and go through what each of those documents are, but they are there and they're helpful. They tell you about all sorts of stats and how much you can make in a job, all of those things. So I actually had a student come into my office and he got this really great job offer. And he said, "Oh, I don't know if it's a good job offer." And because he's a numbers guy, I remember sitting there and I said, no, let's go look at this and see this will. And we narrowed it down to zip code, his title, and then he was in the 95 percentile of what his job could be, offering him at a entry level. So, those are all great resources when you get to that area. What you want to know about when you're searching, and this is the case with a full-time job and an internship, there's an open job market, which we know what that is. It's the websites, it's the databases, it's the company career sites. So we all have access to that. It's the interviewing career fairs, Handshake, Indeed, LinkedIn, all of those. There's also this hidden job market. which really comes from your network. It could be your network that you gained here at URI. It could be your network through your sororities, fraternities, clubs, and it could be your friends and family. And know that about 50% of our students find internships and even jobs through friends and family. And usually it kind of happens where, oh yeah, I'm looking for an internship in business. And someone says, oh, I know such and such. And the first thing they say is, can you send me your resume? And next thing you know, you got a supply chain internship over the summer that it was never even posted. And it happens more than you realize. And I was always that kind of student who said, I can do this on my own. I can do this on my own. But I'm telling you, when you use your network, you can do it a lot faster, and some really great things can happen from it. So I really encourage you to kind of start thinking about your network in a different way. Some things that we talked about, the open job market, some key resources. I would just went through those things and talked about it. You can find professional associations also in the what can I do with this major area right at the very bottom. I can show that to you in just a minute. And we talked about some of those other areas, the career fairs. I always say, make time for the career fairs that we have. I know usually they're on campus, usually they're in person, but still, I know that part of Business 390 is that you're required to attend it, but really make it part of what you do. If you're able to sign up for a one-on-one with an employer, you might build this amazing connection and have an interview. It might end up being an interview and they want you to have a summer internship. So really take that time to the professional has come to look for a URI student to do something. Same with club events. Take the time to participate in those. A lot of employers will come and say, oh yeah, we're posting an internship, in a week or two. And, you would have never even known about it. When you think about how to access those things, like I just said, you're getting involved, you're participating in maybe a job shadowing, you're connecting with friends and family, you're maybe an alumni event happen, the clubs, the networking, really kind of putting yourself out there to get connected. And, that's the part where I always say, like, who's in your network? Who do you want to be in your network? Kathleen just said, connect with her. She has 500 people. You're going to connect with your instructor. Do you connect with a faculty member? Do you connect with other students in your class? Because all of you are going to become a network. That will be a graduating class of, whatever year you're going to be graduating. So think of that. It's amazing how the College of Business, the network is huge and very connected. When you think about ways that you can use this class to help you, I just really want to hone in on informational interviews and how important they are. We're at the beginning of a semester. Really think about who you could meet at a career day, at a career fair, at a club meeting that you want to get to know more about what they do. You were on LinkedIn and you saw that the woman who Kathleen just showed, she went through the CPA. Well, I noticed that she did ticket sales at the Ryan Center. I noticed that she has some of the jobs that she did on campus. That person might be a great person to do an informational interview with you. Did you do the 150 as, an undergrad? Did you do it as a master's degree? How's it helped you? So really an informational interview can be pretty pivotal for you about learning about the industry. Of course, you come prepared to ask questions. I always say an informational interview is only as good as how much you prepare. If you come with no questions, you'll both sit there and say nothing, because really you should be asking the questions. So valuable though. When you think about identifying companies, I know a lot of students are kind of like, I don't even know the names of companies. I don't even know where I want to work. But if you think about target jobs, companies in a way of, well, I know I will never work in a city, or I used to live in Boston, so that's not really true. But, I know that I want to be closer to home, or I'm a West Coast versus East Coast. You can kind of start to kind of think about where you want to be, and, think about what you need your salary to be. Think about cost of living, when you start thinking about jobs and internships, there's some great internships, but is it worth it for you to pay to live in Boston? Like, how pivotal will that be for your experience? Could there be a company that's closer to home? So you kind of have to evaluate all those things. And you do the same thing when you look for a full-time job. When you're applying for an internship, I just want you to remind you, obviously, all the things that Kathleen just talked about are right here. This is what employers want to see. Kathleen and I ask employers all of these questions. I can't stress how important it is about your voicemail, and then answering the phone when there's no one hooting and hollering in the background. The other thing is making sure that your voice messages are clear. I don't know how many times I'll get a phone call and someone goes, "Oh, I was going to leave a message, but your voice message was full." For some reason, I never get a message that my voice message is full. So make sure that you check that, especially when you start sending out resumes, because a lot of times they do just call you because they just want to kind of get the process going. I think the main thing is to remind yourself, and I really like this slide because all of you are unique and all of you have something special that you've done, that you've participated in. And what you need to do is show that employer your unique point. What makes you stand out as a good candidate for what you're applying to, and be able to communicate that to them is really important, not only in writing, but during an interview process. And then the other piece that I like to do is just have strategies, internships, projects, presentations, research, languages. Kathleen kind of talked about that, but those are all really marketable pieces. The fact that supply chain, you can work on a professional green belt and a yellow belt, and work with companies as part of your curriculum is really important. The fact that there are case competitions in accounting and also in marketing. The other piece that, finance, you can be part of the Rams fund and, manage a whole portfolio. Get involved and take advantage of these things, because that's really your academic experience becomes how you market yourself professionally. You got to create a plan, stay organized. I tell students a lot of times, you might be applying to 10 to 15 internships and you've reworked that resume so many times. It's really important to stay organized. I'm a big offender of using my desktop, but there'd be a folder with, internships, summer 2021, the company name may be in a folder with the documents that you sent. And, who are the contact people? I also really remind people is that digitally that job description gets taken down and you can't find it again. So I always copy and paste it and put it on a blank document. So at least I have it. It may not look pretty, but I have it. So when they call you back a month or two later and you're like, oh my God, I don't even know what I applied to, you'll have all that information. I think it's really important for people to not only stay organized, but put a plan in action. So I always say to people, if you're thinking about some of the bigger companies, they have an earlier process. So I'll pick on accounting. Accounting, they post summer internships almost a year in advance. So August and September, they're posting for the next summer. That will always be that way for a big company, a PwC, an EY. When you think about maybe some of the smaller companies, they might be a semester ahead. Sometimes they're waiting because now we're toggling between, is it going to be in person or is it going to be still remote? And they're kind of holding back. So they've posted a lot of summer internships just recently. So, those are things that you want to definitely kind of think about, what your industry is, where you want to be, and what's their timeline. The other part is following up with people and keeping track of the jobs. I know Handshake tracks that. When you've applied for something, it will tell you kind of the process that's going on. And the other piece is that some are rolling, so you'll find out right away. Other times it'll be posted and has to be submitted by January 1, but you're doing it in November. So you're not going to be reaching out to that company until after that job has closed. Searching on Handshake, I'm going to show you that in just a minute. I'll open that up and share that with you. The other thing is I'm going to show you some ways to search on Indeed. And then also I just want to remind you about Career Day coming up. And then that would be in March. I know it's in your syllabus, but just I like to kind of remind people. Some tips when you're searching, and I'll go through this, is you want to make sure that any kind of website that you have, whether it be an Instagram, whether it be a Facebook, that you make sure that those are in check, because again, they're going to be looking for you online. When you set up any kind of accounts, when it comes to like if you had to apply in a company website, you want to make sure that you save all your passwords. Sometimes they'll make you apply into like a Citizens Bank website versus applying in Handshake. So those are things that you just want to keep write them down, put them in a notebook or something like that. I know that sometimes you create so many passwords you kind of forget. The other thing is that a lot of the databases now, I would say it's an assistant working for free for you. They will allow you to do save searches and it will email you back. So take advantage of that when you're searching. It could be that you put in human resource jobs or human resource internships, and then Indeed will email you once a week or, every once a month, depending on what you set your preferences for. So just kind of make sure that you're keeping, yourself organized in that sense when it's searching. So those are kind of the quick pieces that I wanted to have you go through, but I want to show you, which I have my browsers open. I'm going to just see if I can switch that over and show you this instead. Kathleen, can you see Indeed or no? Okay, so then I'm going to have to stop sharing.
No.
Okay, and then I'll have to share again. So let me go over here. All right. And do this. It doesn't, can you see Indeed now?
Yes.
Okay. So one of the sites that I really like to use because I like the way it's set up is Indeed. And then I'll show you Handshake. I'll have to stop sharing and go back and forth. Is Indeed does the save search. So I put in supply chain internship. I always say what you're looking for, use the least amount of words as possible and kind of play with it. I did Providence, Rhode Island, just because I always use main hubs. And then you can also change the miles. Well, Rhode Island is so small. If you kind of put in 100 miles, you're kind of covering each end of the state. If I was doing Connecticut, I might start with Hartford, Connecticut. If I was doing, Massachusetts, I'd probably start with Boston, Massachusetts, depending on, a main hub. The main thing that I like to remind students is that you can change over here and put in remote. And oops, there we go. And you can find in various jobs that would be remote. So now you're kind of looking at all across the country. And, you just go in and you'd say, okay, this is where I'm kind of applying the company website and follow it right through. And like Kathleen was saying is you want to go through and look and see, are they looking for someone who is a rising senior and graduate students? So that's kind of someone who's in that junior level, finishing up their junior core classes, going into their senior year. And these are some things that they're really looking for. So those would be some key words that you definitely want to have on your resume to kind of get through the search process. Then you can go in and kind of look at the company because it's all right here for the database. Let me see if I can bring up this. Stop sharing and hang on one second. I'm going to share my screen again. No, it's not letting me do that. Hang on one second. This is where you have to close this, so it will be a preference. So the next thing, if I share screen over here, hopefully this will. The other thing that I spend a lot of time talking with students about is just simply go into Google and do accounting internships summer 2021. And what you'll see is now I'm near Watch Hill, so it immediately picks up my geographic location. So you can go through and say, okay, see, it's using main hubs. Okay. You'll see that Indeed is an area where you can search. You can also see that internships.com, Glassdoor, and then LinkedIn. There's tons of things you can find in LinkedIn if you just do a simple Google search of finding an internship. So that's another way to go in and find an internship. And then you kind of see who the database is. And you'll start, as you start searching a lot and you kind of make it part of, maybe you do it once a week and then you set up your saved searches, you'll start seeing that there's overlap. Certain companies will maybe do one posting in an Indeed. If you go to the company website, you might find a whole section of a lot more internships that exist there because they're not going to pay for every single internship to be posted. Let me do one more sharing of this. Hold on. I'm going to stop sharing. Hang on one second. I think the main thing is that you have to kind of say, okay, I got to commit to doing this. Let me share the screen for this. So this is Handshake. So I am in as a student. I went in and put in an accounting internship. I put the keyword internship, but obviously you can do internship part-time. There is a way to search on campus, and then you can search by location. Remote is also a category that you can search for. And you'll see that one of the things that you'll come up with is there's an accounting internship right at Amica. You can go in and you can look at the different, how they want you to apply externally, the posted and when the deadlines are. And then you can go through and read and look for those kind of keywords for the full job description and kind of what you'll be doing. So those are some things to kind of think about. Now, remember, Handshake is a network itself. So Handshake connects behind the scenes all of kind of the different colleges and universities that are paying to use Handshake. So it's really important to remember that Handshake is free to the employer to post at URI, and they can control if it's posted just for a URI student or not. Indeed, is for anyone also. However, they have to pay to post internships, the companies do. So just remember, someone on the back end of Handshake is vetting it. The other piece Handshake does is Handshake connects who you are in eCampus, not everything personal, but just like your major, and connects it that way so that it should help you with the search. So someone like me, because I'm not labeled as a supply chain student, I can search a lot of different preferences, and sometimes my searching then a lot kind of dictates what gets sent to me in my saved searches. Where you as students, you can do the same thing, but usually it will kind of help you with that process. So if you're a finance major, a lot of times it'll be more finance driven. So just be aware of that. The other part to be aware of is that if your major is not correct in eCampus, then you might be getting stuff that you might not want to look at. You can always go in and change that through eCampus with some paperwork. While we're in Handshake and we can look at these things, remember in events, this is where you're going to find when career days posted. So any events that are happening, you can find it in this area. Sometimes because there's so many events, they're not always geared towards URI. So sometimes you actually have to put the keyword in URI. Again, Handshake is its own network through all the different colleges and universities. So just be aware of that. You can obviously attend any event you'd want to, but sometimes it's harder to find a URI event unless you put in the keyword URI. But this is where you'd find an event that's going on through Handshake, Career Day, Job Fair. So Career Day is going to be its own external link. The Job Fair and Internship Fair will be through Handshake, and this is where you'll find it. Again, jobs would be any kind of internship or full-time job, and you'd be searching for that. Let's see, I'm going to stop sharing there. Hang on. I want to make sure I didn't miss anything. So I went through quickly kind of Handshake, how to search. I went through Indeed. We just a simple Google search. And then I talked about how you can really use your network. Basically, and I also talked about the organization of starting your search. And pretty much this is the steps that you take to look for a full-time job, to also look for an internship. The main thing though is it's really exciting to jump in and start searching, but the first place you really need to start is with your resume. That's your first place of starting for searching for anything. So that's what I wanted to cover with you. I don't know if anyone has any questions. I don't see any in the, oh, there you go. What's my favorite job site? Oh, that's hard. You know, I'll have to say, I really like the way Indeed looks. If I had to pick one, I like Glassdoor because you can see the salary is really nice and it gives you a bell curve. At least it did last time I checked. But Indeed, I think is just really clean looking. I don't know, maybe I like the font of it. But what happens with me is I start going crazy and I start doing a Google search and I look at every single website and then I find overlap and I get really excited about searching. So I know it sounds a little weird. But that's a good question, right? I'm trying to think of anything else that I missed that I should tell you right now. I think the main thing is copying your job description that you're applying to, because then you can print it off. And if you're like me, you like to highlight the keywords and then you have it saved in a document. So when they call you for an interview, you can go back to that job description and you will know the resume, the cover letter, and the job description. You'll be really excited and feel really ready for the interview.
So let's put it out to everybody else. Do any of you have any, how do I search for an internship? What do I need to look for? I know we've got a mixed group here. I know we have sophomores. I know we have juniors, and I know we have seniors who are taking 390 now, and this is actually their full-time job search. So you've got Lynn and I right in front of you. Is there anything that you need to know? Type it in chat.
I know, I just thought of something for someone who's a sophomore and you just saw that supply chain internship that I showed you, that they're looking for rising seniors. Most likely that's a cycle and that will happen again and again and again. So when you're searching and you're like, they only want juniors. They only want this. Save it aside and say, hey, you know what? I'm going to put it in my Google Calendar and I'm going to search for that next year at this time. And trust me, the year will go by really fast. And you'll be like, oh my God, I got to search for this.
Lynn,
I think that's
question,
important.
it's an important one. What are your thoughts on getting an internship the summer of junior year versus the summer of senior year?
All right. So the summer of junior year. So the summer of junior year can be pretty pivotal. One, you finished your first year in the College of Business of upper core classes. So you have a lot of the language and you're really kind of hopefully getting excited about your major. And employers are really looking for you. So you can actually end up a lot of times with a job offer at the end of your junior year. So when you walk into your senior year, you are kind of just got to finish the classes and you have a job offer. Or you might be like, the internship was good, but I'm going to still keep looking, and you could plug in one or two more internships over your senior year. The difference between finishing, so let's say you're a May 2021 graduate and you're looking for an internship right now, it might be confusing to the employer of why you're looking for an internship when you should be looking for a full-time job. So remember, if we go back to that resume, the first thing up in the top says May 2021. that's when you're graduating, you should be applying for a full-time job usually. And usually you don't even qualify because you're not a matriculated student anymore, you're a graduated student. The only thing that can be confusing about the word internship that I find is that sometimes there are rotational programs that they label with the keyword in it, internship. But if you read the requirements, it says bachelor degree required. So it's a full-time job that you're applying to, that you rotate through various parts of the company. So if you are one of the students who does not have or missed out on an internship or really doesn't have as much experience, you really kind of still need to be applying for an a full-time job. And that's when I'd say encourage you to either reach out to myself or Kathleen so we can kind of discuss kind of your next career plans.
I think we've done it, and we've done it in less than 11:30. So we saved you about 15 minutes. Just quickly, remember that what's due Monday night at 9 is your resume, a professional business resume, a targeted business cover letter, and a thank you letter, as if you had had a successful job interview. And your instructor also wants you to include the job that you are writing your documents against. All those things should be submitted to Brightspace assignments by Monday at 9.
Yeah.
The other thing I want to say just very quickly, Lynn alluded to the fact that Career Day is coming up. It's going to be Friday, March 26th. I know that seems forever from now, but in the morning, there are going to be career speakers, and in the afternoon, there's going to be a job fair. I just want to share a success story. I was working with a student last semester who had pretty much decided that she needed to be going in a particular career path because she didn't think she'd get hired in another career path. I'm trying to make this as general as possible. Job fair came up. She signed up to speak with as many companies as possible in the afternoon. She ended up, as a result of these connections that she made, doing 6 interviews based on just the fact that she spoke with them and they were impressed with her credentials. She had limited her sites so much, and she was amazed that so many people not only wanted to speak with her, but I think she walked away with 3 different internship offers. So take advantage of every opportunity that you have to speak with employers. They are eager to speak with you. They're eager to hear what you're looking to do. When they come on campus, they're coming because they want to talk to you. So, don't be shy about it. Get in there and talk to them, and you'll be amazed what comes from it. I speak for Lynn, although I think Lynn's getting ready to say something. I'll let her.
I was just going to say for Career Day, I've heard students have told me about that one-on-one. Prep as a little bit of an informational interview because you never know how a company's going to respond to that. So make sure you kind of know the company that you're meeting with. You might not know the person, but come with some general questions because I've heard students say, I didn't get a word in edgewise. They told me all about it. On my one-on-one, it's only 10 minutes. And then the other time they said they wanted me to ask all the questions. So, but like Kathleen said, it's FaceTime. You never know what can happen from it. You can get an internship in a second.
Yeah. Thanks for your time. I know we all are black screened because, we're trying to save our Zoom bandwidth, but it's been great spending the morning with you. Lynn and I will stay for a couple of minutes in case you've got any one-on-one questions, but have a good rest of the day and a good weekend. And, we'll see you on Career Day, if not before.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you so much. Have a good weekend.
Have a nice weekend.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank
Thank you very much.
You're welcome. Bye-bye.
Go enjoy the day. Woohoo!
Awesome. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Oh, no, not Lynn Pascarella.
Bye, Francis.
Bye.
See ya. Only a few more to go. Went from 100 to 15 in a blink. These might be the people who are walked away to go go get a drink. They're like, oh my God, they're still going.
I guess I can stop recording. That's the
Yeah.